Thanks for joining Scene Squad. I'm your host, political culture critic Sharron with two R's, and I'm joined today with my co-host and historian, financial guru, Rosalie, and you're listening to Seen and Heard podcast. Okay, so we want to open up with the El Salvador president talking about him and RFK and his remarks on autism. But first thing I thought when I heard Van Hollen, Senator Van Hollen, say that he was going to El Salvador to check on Kilmar, I was thinking of Leo Ryan, who went to Guyana in 1973. And also we had Jackie Spear, which she's still alive. Jackie Spear went with him. But unfortunately, Leo Ryan did not return, but he went over there to try to check on Jim Jones People's Temple. So I give it up to Senator Van Hollen for at least going to try to, check on him like other politicians should. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I agree. I think it's probably the first time that we've seen like real action and have a member of our federal government willing to kind of really put their neck on the line in that sense. I think there was a lot of fear around, what could happen if anyone were to stand up and go do something. Now, what I would have liked to have seen is a group of senators going down there. Of course, having the senator from his state going down and having it be a white man is all very, very important, right? However, with the privilege that comes with all of that and everything, but I would have absolutely liked to have seen Democratic leadership go down there in force, show up in numbers. There is power in numbers, and we've shown that over and over again. But I'm grateful that he went down there. It's obvious that they're not going to let him see the guy that they're going down there to see. And that's the issue where I figure if they had more individuals, we might have gotten a better turnout for that.
So do you see any more movement? Do you think there is going to be any more movement?
I mean, the administration's chief Barbie correspondent got up on the podium and said kind of unequivocally that he's never coming back. They kind of made it perfectly clear. And I personally don't think he's coming back either. I think there's a perfectly good reason why he won't be coming back. He is either no longer with us, or the information that he would provide when he came back is so damning they're not going to let it happen. There's just no way around that. And they are trying to get around it with this notion that he's technically a citizen of El Salvador, which means that he's out of their jurisdiction at this point, which we know is a lot of shit. I know we don't cuss a lot on here, but we know
right.
No, it's a lot.
We're having an adult conversation because this is a serious topic, and they paid up, from what I understand, that the United States is taking our tax money and paying El Salvador to house citizens.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about, how a lot of the camps were set up in World War II from the Holocaust, a lot of those camps were not located in Germany, right? Outsourcing, the worst of it is how you keep people from realizing how bad it truly is, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a kind of a tried and true strategy, if you will. It doesn't just present a constitutional crisis, which I think we're far past at this point. It changes everything. Everything is different now. There's actually no going back. I wish that there was something that I could say that would be like, oh, we can turn it. There's actually no really turning back from this moment. Everything, even how there's it's obvious that the levers and the mechanisms of this government are designed to sustain itself, even if that means going into full-blown fascism to make that happen, which this government has done many times in history, depending on whatever demographic they're trying to target. I would say that this is probably one of the more widespread examples of that in U.S. history. But I think we're reaching another kind of pivotal tipping point in what's going on right now. Again, it's only the amount of damage that they do is going to
The
determine, is
laws
going to be
only work.
us. It's going to depend on us, right? So, oh, I think we lost you, Sharron. But we also saw some information coming out about an individual. I'm going to share my screen while she's doing her thing. I do want to bring some attention to some information that we had on a U.S. citizen that was detained. I'm talking about the U.S. citizen that was actually detained as well, from a ICE picked up a U.S. Born citizen, and a Florida judge, even after seeing all the documentation showing that this individual was born in the United States, is a U.S. citizen, told the mother that she basically they couldn't have him released. They didn't have the jurisdiction or the authority to be able to do that. And I do think I saw a couple of videos on TikTok confirming that he was let go. That he was released from custody, but they were held, and it was basically, when the way I see it for these types of things is, when these types of things happen, it is, if they don't go all the way through with it, it's essentially testing a threshold for what people will tolerate. It's a dry run. I don't think that they intended to be able to hold him much longer, but they wanted to see, what will the judge say if we do have a federal agency like ICE detain somebody illegally? Will the states fight for the states' rights over the jurisdiction within their states? And in this particular case, the answer was no. And I think that's the story that we need to kind of focus on in that sense, is that, like, if they can't do anything again, if state judges can't do anything against ICE operating within their states, then states' rights don't exist. And I think it's a very important distinction that people need to recognize. That's what's happening here. And again, I point people back to going and looking at the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. Go and look at what happened and why things went the way that they went. You have to remember, the North refused to enforce the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, which made them basically return escaped enslaved individuals, people who were not considered citizens of the United States at that time, people who were illegally immigrating to those states. These are slave catcher tactics. And refusal to comply with those laws is what kicked off the Civil War in the United States. And it was about the issue of slavery. And what we are essentially witnessing here today is just, again, a reiteration of the same thing that this government has done, and the culture that has been born out of that never went away from that, because Reconstruction failed in many, many ways. And we are still living with the ramifications of that, because we never handled it right the first time. And so we're going to keep, in the same way that you always wind up like dating somebody who represents the trauma that you didn't get over. That's how that's what this is. And until we're willing to do the healing it's going to take to recognize why we are continuing to choose to stay in the spiral. And when I say we, I'm talking about white women, white people in general, but also I will say that it's ingrained so deeply into the culture that we are all at least somewhat trained to want that comfort and that normalcy and that privilege of being American in a global stage as well, and needing to humble ourselves enough to see that it's bigger than that. We have to see bigger than that. We have to do better.
And that's what I was saying earlier. Well, when I got cut off, I was saying the laws only work if they're enforced. And I think I got the clip. I'm going to try to play it again, so if anyone's confused, you can hear it directly from Rump's mouth. that he plans on sending American citizens. That could be any one of us. He plans on sending us or people in this country over to El Salvador. So I'm going to play this clip.
Change their lives, and they want it. Matter the people wanted to change their lives, and they want it. They love you. They love what you do. You know, I'm not feel supportive. I want them to do, homegrown criminals next. Yeah. I said homegrowns are next. The homegrown. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's fair. All right. It's not big enough. No, yeah. Come on. So this is a much different office than you.
That's extra horrifying to me, the laughter in the background. That is
Right.
terrifying.
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking. Frankly, it's not just the fact that he said it, it's that he said it with the kind of equivalent of applause.
Those, and I mean, we're speechless. This is just going to be.
There's really not much to say. It speaks for itself, doesn't it?
And it's just. I don't know what to say, because I personally am at the point that if the laws were going to be enforced, they would have already been enforced. We would not have a 34 times felon rapist in our White House. That never should have been an option.
He shouldn't have even been able to run in the most recent election by law.
I mean, he can't go to, like, all these people that are coming over here to meet him in the White House is because he can't leave and go to 33 other countries. He cannot get into other countries. He can't get into Canada because he's a felon. He can't go to 33 countries because he's a felon. They do not let felons into their countries. So when you see all these people that come in to the White House, it's because he can't go there. He can't go to meet them. They do not let felons into their country.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think there is much that needs to be said on that account. I think it's, if you can't see how bad it is, or you're okay with that, like at this point, there's really not going to be a convincing. Like, I'm not interested. I'm at the point, and I think I've been at the point, and I think part of that has involved a lot of like humbling and like learning how to, protect your energy and things, and learn how to focus it on the things that really matter. But I'm not in the business of convincing anyone. And I think once I realized that, like, it's not necessarily about convincing people so much as leading by example in the way I'm just going to continue to live the way that I know is going to benefit the people around me, regardless of how it benefits me in that sense. And kind of keep focused on that. I don't debate with folks. I don't try to convince people to care. I feel like people that, even when I'm interacting, I know you do on TikTok as well, it's one of those, I have people who get upset with me because they don't care about what I'm saying so much that they need to comment 4 comments about how much they don't care. And I'm like, you could show that you care a little less if you just didn't comment at all. Actually, like, I'm not sure who told you I cared.
I am not going to respond anymore, because like that certain situation that was happening in your comment section, I made a comment, and it was like my comment was self-explanatory, and they went and responded under my comment. So I sent you that message, and I was just like, I'm not even engaging with these people anymore, because like you said, their whole purpose is to drain us and get us off track of what we're trying to focus on, like you said, or stay on track with things maybe we can change, or maybe, you know what I'm saying, like that we can help. They want to drain us. They're like a succubus vampire or something. It's just like, well, I don't want her to be able to do that either, so I'm just going to completely drain her and act obtuse in her comment section. But
the guy you're discussing with, he was a mutual of mine. Very disappointed. I was like, if you don't calm it down, buddy.
I'm not responding. Like and then okay, there was a hater in one of my comment sections. So depending on what it said, what is said, I made a video response to them, and it was like the lady. There was a lady I stitched. Well, I kind of tried to stitch her, and she asked, Trump wants people to pick U.S. or China. So I made a response to her video, and I was singing a Chinese song. And then somebody made a comment under my video and it says ignorant. Well, I took their comment, and then I sang like a love song to them in Korean. I sang it in Korean.
They're gonna think it's in Chinese,
right. They don't know the difference. But speaking of getting worse, because we had to laugh. So if y'all are on TikTok, go follow and look at our profiles, and y'all will see what we're talking about on TikTok. So
Rosie the Originator, Tragedy
on TikTok. So, because we have to laugh before we talk about this last topic, which is it's extremely egregious. Speaking of getting worse, this has to do with our health. Is he the health director?
Health and Human Services.
Okay.
The Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Okay.
RFK Jr.
Deep breath. And while I play this clip, everybody take a deep breath and we'll discuss on the other side.
These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children, and we need to put an end to it.
The only thing I'll agree with him about doing this to our children is the fact that the certain people voted in a 34 times felon in the White House. Your thoughts, Rosalie?
Yeah. It's very interesting. My perspective is a little different. Having a child who is in special therapies for autism and having special needs, being autistic myself, not with an official diagnosis, but self-diagnosed. People don't go around self-diagnosing with autism unless they anyway. So all the signs were there for me. No one caught them though. They just put me in the gifted classes and said she can read when she's 3. That's crazy. I was the talk too much, do too much, brain too much kiddo from a very, very young age. But my little one, I try to talk to people about this because today was rough. It's tough to put into words. Because it's eugenics, it's genocidal rhetoric. It's what the Nazis used against disabled people during World War II. It's what the United States has, the demonization of others, of the smallest groups, right? It's much easier to target the smallest groups, just like trans individuals, LGBTQ community and things of that nature. The reason why you didn't see as many autistic people in the past is because they institutionalized them, they lobotomized them, they threw them in jail, they didn't help them, they let them be on the streets, or they blended in.
RFK's relative was
They were able to mask. They were able to pretend that they were normal.
Does he have a cousin or something that was in his family autistic?
So well, I don't know as far as anybody who's diagnosed within his family, but if you look at the signs and symptoms of
Rose.
his aunt, Rosemary Kennedy, her early childhood symptoms, along with her early adult symptoms, they paint a picture that this looks a lot like projection to me. When he talks about it destroying families and being completely debilitating, all of this harmful, misinformed rhetoric, we have to remember that his family lobotomized his aunt for showing very similar symptoms to autistic children in her youth and in her young adulthood. And so I'm not shocked that he would have this take. And it is also, it's just very important for people to keep in mind that context matters. Why he is, what motivates him matters. And it doesn't actually matter so much in the grand scheme of things whether he is coming from a place of trauma and we want to have empathy for that or not. It doesn't change the fact that I don't care if he was raised this way. I don't care if they lobotomized his aunt and that's how he was raised and that's what they believe. I don't care in that sense. I don't have empathy. I mean, I don't have sympathy for the people who are dragging him over the coals right now because it's very obvious that he is also disabled. He hates disability because he is so scared of it. Because disability actually doesn't discriminate in that sense. It can get any one of us at any moment can become disabled. And it's terrifying, I think, to him, to the extent that what he saw with his aunt, what he's experienced for himself, it terrifies him. And people like him, and people who are unhealed, people who are not willing to not be perfect. Perfectionism, this another tenet of white supremacy culture, right? Instead of embracing the differences that people have. And this is the article actually that I was reading.
This one
is one of the ones that I've read. Yeah, Rosemary Kennedy.
I'll link it in the description for you guys to be able to read for yourself. But I wanted to pull that up because it was years ago when I was learning about the lobotomy of her, what happened to Rosemary and how they had her hidden away and things like that. I was just, that was before RFK and his run for office. And, but yeah, I read up on her and how they treated her, a few years back. But yeah, this is, in the, like, this being disabled. Like, I have had 3 back surgeries. So I'm functional, but I have, bad days. And then there are hidden ailments that people are dealing with, even more so now. I'm watching a lot of people on not crashing out, but they're telling their truths. Like, I saw a horrifying trend after Roe v. Wade was overturned. There were a lot of young girls making videos, posting videos. They weren't saying anything in the videos, but you'd see the camera on them, and then they would turn the camera like they were falling downstairs or falling outside of a window. This was after Roe v. Wade was turned. So, I mean, you can kind of take from that what that means. And then there are people more so lately talking about what's the point? What is the point?
Right.
Self-deleting, that's a trend. Not meaning anything, but if anybody feels, if anybody is out there feeling like that, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but talk to somebody close to you that you trust. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I don't know if there are any numbers that people can call now, because a lot of veterans are saying that they're calling their helplines, to deal with those feelings and those urges. They can't get through to anybody. So I can't even tell you to call somebody. Call a friend, yes. But like as far as like a hotline or something, I don't even know if we could find a number. I'll put the hotline number in the description box. But I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell. You know what I'm saying? I can't diagnose how people are feeling. But I suggest just call a friend, somebody close.
Right. There's a couple of bits of information. There's definitely different hotlines that you can. There's different, like Veterans Crisis Line. They still have 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line. And there's a couple of different options out there.
I guess it's other different states. Because I saw a very heart-wrenching video of a veteran hollering, and he said they cut the line, they cut me off. Like I could feel his pain. I was just like, just horrified. And RFK is in charge of all that, and he's not. He doesn't care.
Right. There is no changing the fact that every single person in the United States that isn't in the 1% is going to feel what's coming. It's going to hit everyone. I think everyone needs to be very sober and serious about that fact. You can giggle and you can be in denial in our comment section as much as you want to be. I don't care how funny you want to pretend you think it is. As long as when you get home and you think about it, you look at it with a very sobering pause and you start putting plans into place to dig into your community or do what you need to do to weather this storm. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican right now. It doesn't matter if you are a Democrat. It doesn't matter who you voted for or why you voted for them. It's coming for every single person here. And we can all agree that it's it is the cumulative effort of both Democratic and Republican administrations that got us to this point. Republicans decided that they were going to play bad cop, and Democrats decided they were going to play good cop. And they've been volleying us back and forth to this point, to a breaking point, because they chose money over people. And they let that corrupt them. And in a capitalist structure, without regulation, that's how it's designed to work. And so it's time for people to really, really recognize where we are. Your privilege does not exist in the same fashion that it did before. It just doesn't. Even if you think you had it, it's gone now. The minute that you step out of line, it's gone. So, and I don't think anyone, including a Republican voter, the average Republican voter, really truly wants that outcome. I really don't deep down think that the average people truly want that outcome. Now, these super all the way diehard, never convince me of anything folks, they will be left behind with time. They're going to do a lot of damage. And so anyone who is pretending that they're still okay with this because they're afraid and they don't know what to do, it's time for you to make a decision now. It's coming. I know you can see it. I guess that's my plea to anyone who might have been on the right who is still willing to see a little bit of reason at this moment, because we need as many people as we can right now to stand up. And we can get to the finer details once we've taken our country back. You know what I mean?
I wanted to play this clip of Murkowski to end off. I wanted to get your thoughts on this clip of her today. And this was like, this is the worst thing. Well, I can't say the worst thing because there's been a lot of bad things lately happening, but I want to get your thoughts on what she had to say here. Did I pull that up? Can you see the screen?
I can see it.
Okay, let me hit play. Hold on.
It's quite a statement. But we are, we're in a time and a place where I don't know, I certainly have not, I've not been here before. And I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice, because retaliation is real, and that's not right. But that's what you've asked me to do. And so I'm going to use my voice to the best of my ability. And sometimes it will be viewed in a way that, well, that's pretty confrontational. And other times it's going to be using my mother's charm that I learned as a young girl, and in direct communication with those that I've made relationships with, and am able to affect some change that way. But I've got to figure out how I can do my best to help the many who are so anxious and are so afraid. What are you going to have to say to people?
Nothing she said there was comforting or reassuring, and she said a whole lot of nothing to me.
What I will say is it's a break. It's a bend at the very least in the foundations of the people who have been kind of lifelong supporters of that party. Just as the Democratic Party seems to be fracturing a bit, and so is the Republican Party, right? These are the moments when these types of takeovers happen where the dissidents within their own party are weeded out, right? The folks who may have gotten them to one point but weren't going to see them to the finish line, they need to suss that out very quickly, and will suss it out very quickly when the regime does the mask off moment. I think we are very likely to see a reaction to people like her the way that we had a reaction to Pence certifying the election in 2021. My hope is that enough of the Republican Party sees where they are and starts to see the forest for the trees, right? Starts to actually recognize that, we've gone too far. And I don't know, again, there is no like going back. Like there's no like, whoopsie daisy. Let's just get back to business. That's not happening. That's over now. Right.
Jump the shark.
we can't go back to the way things were. And frankly, that's probably a good thing because that's how we got here. And that's a scary concept. And I think that's what she's trying to convey. And she's not good at comforting people through that, because I think that, we're watching in real time it occur to people just how far they allowed the wool to be pulled over for the sake of preserving their own comfort, their own privilege, thinking that this rhetoric wouldn't actually have the consequences, the long-term consequences that people who in other demographics who are more marginalized said that they would. We are seeing it. I don't like talking about The Handmaid's Tale, but what I will say is when we watch Lady Blue get her comeuppance, it's very much, I think a lot of people had that Schadenfreude like moment like of her misery, but then you also recognize that again, we create our own oppressors. We're giving birth to our own oppressors. We're marrying our own oppressors. And it's that I understand why people don't have empathy for her in her position. I understand that, or sympathy at the very least. I can empathize with it without having sympathy for it, is how I feel about that moment. I actually don't care if she's scared. I don't. I hope she is scared. It is important that she is scared. If she feels nothing, we are truly cooked.
The parable of the sour is basically a guide to what's happening now too. Like even before
I actually ordered and got that book in a few weeks ago. It is on my TBR. I'm I'm trying to get through quite a few at the moment and just kind of rotating through, but that is one.
I have to get
that I
it
very
myself. I can't afford it right now, but I have read clips because I've had people send clips of it to me because unfortunately, there are a lot of books that I do want to read. I just can't afford it. So if anybody out there has some books extra books that I would like.
How about, why don't you put together a list, and you have a link tree, you can put the list to it in there and have like a wish list. Somebody
Okay,
could maybe,
I'll do
you
that.
can put that up. Yeah, I know thrift books is a really good place to go. I think I got the Parable of the Sower there for like $8 or $9.
Okay.
And they can sometimes have versions of it that are like $5. If it's like really well used and they have to like
Right.
tape some of it back together, it's fine, because I don't mind getting the reused books and stuff like that. But
Same here. There are a
if
lot of
people
Buddhist books that I want.
shop on Amazon, you're boycotting Amazon thrift books,
eBay.
and
eBay has used
also
books.
going to the thrift store. I have found some gems for books there. So,
But yeah, so we'll do that. We'll work on that. But yeah, so we'll end on that. Last words of encouragement, if you can. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something right. Well, all I could say is I would like to see you guys on the next show. The news is just happening so fast, so we're trying to stay on top of it, but we could use your support. That'll help us a lot. Thumbs up the video, like the video, comment on the video, donate. The donations help a whole lot with our production, and it'll help keep us like on a regular schedule as well. So, any last thoughts?
I'm trying so hard to keep my kid out of the
that's
frame.
okay. We'll say bye.
Trying to be
Look, she's like, it's time to go.
What I will say is, for the parents out there right now that are struggling to find hope and hold the world together and have it all figured out, don't forget that we are raising the next generation, and we can't forget that they need us to like enrich and be there and live, right? So don't forget to like live and let your kids see you doing that, instead of just seeing you kind of drown and suffer in this moment. Like, goof off with your kids, blow bubbles. Don't forget to go touch grass, please. It is so critical to maintaining the momentum. Okay, so and go on, get a premium membership so that we can afford this thing rolling.
And a shout out and kisses to my autistic listeners and viewers. Mwah. Okay, there's somebody here that cares. That we want to hear from you. So leave us your stories. That would be great too. Share your stories. That's very important because people need to share their stories. I believe that'll help so many people. No matter what your story is, it'll help so many people, especially in this time, where people are feeling like they don't have anywhere to turn. So share your stories. We'll play it on air. If you want to be on air with us, get a membership. We'll have you in the studio. Bye. Bye.
We have breaking news tonight. Just as we are getting on the air tonight, we have learned that Senator Chris Van Hollen, Democrat of Maryland, has been able to meet with imprisoned Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The government of El Salvador posting 3 photos online of the senator meeting with Mr. Abrego Garcia a short time later. Senator Van Hollen confirming that he did have a chance to meet with his constituent. He said, quote, "I said my main goal of this trip was to meet with Kilmar. Tonight I had that chance. I've called his wife, Jennifer, to pass along his message of love. I look forward to providing a full update upon my return." It is unclear where that meeting took place. It is unclear what Mr. Abrego Garcia's current status is. We are working on getting more information from Senator Van Hollen's office. We will bring it to you as we get it.